What is Wicca? Wicca is a belief system based on pre-Christian native European spirituality, which sees people as part of nature, not above it. In all areas of the world, there were indigenous religions before the spread of Christianity. Wicca is based in part on this spirituality. As with other nature-based groups, Wiccans seek to work with the natural energies which surround us to heal, help, and improve their lives and the lives of those around them. The first group of what we now know as Wiccans was put together by Gerald B. Gardner in England in 1949. Wiccans come in all ages and from all walks of life, from students to doctors, lawyers, and rocket scientists. While many think of Wicca as a women's religion, there is actually about as many men as women practicing Wicca today. Origin of the word Wicca. The Oxford Unabridged Dictionary provides us with a variety of examples of early spellings and uses of the word witch. Study of Old English shows us that consistency in spelling and word usage was slow in developing, and some variations of any given word may be found only once in old documents. The word witch was spelled in many ways. Other words found using the root word of witch are Wicca, a wizard, soothsayer, sorcerer, or magician; Wicca, witch, sorceress; Wicca-craft, sorcery or magic art; Wiccadom, witchcraft, sorcery, or magic; and Wiccan, to practice witchcraft. The word Wicca was originally pronounced witcha and would have pertained to an action or a person performing an action, witcher, rather than applying to a religion. Gerald Gardner chose the word Wicca and pronounced it Wicca as the name for his newly created religion. The Teutonic prefix of wick means to bend, and it is applied generally to various forms of trees which have pliable branches. These would include trees whose branches were used to make bows, such as the wych elm. Other pliable trees included witchwood, mountain ash or rowan, wych alder, and wych hazel. These are all so named because of the flexibility of their branches. As far as we are able to determine, the people who came to be called witches were so named because of their use, or supposed use, of various pliable branches in their work. The use of a branch for witching water, a divining rod used to find underground water sources, for example, pertains first to the use of a flexible branch for the process, and only later to the person using the branch. Origin of the religion of Wicca. Gerald Gardner is said to have studied with and been initiated by witches who had been practicing in England for several generations. The actual truth and details of his background have been the subject of much speculation and are probably known only to those who personally studied with him. Gardner created what we know as Wicca by drawing rituals and traditions from many sources and incorporating both folk magic and ceremonial magic. In 1949, Gerald Gardner wrote a book entitled High Magic's Aid, which is a novel about a coven of witches. And in 1954, he published Witchcraft Today, which is a non-fiction book on the history and practice of witchcraft. He had suspected that his was the only coven in existence, but after his books came out, he began receiving letters from other witches from all over the world. Today, covens descended from Gardner's original coven can be found in many countries. All covens, which we call traditional Wicca, trace their lineage to Gerald Gardner. Most solitary practitioners of Wicca and eclectic Wiccan groups also base their practices on the religion designed by Gardner, although sometimes only loosely. Meaning of paganism and neo-paganism. The Latin word paganus is generally thought to mean a country dweller, peasant, or countryman. The earliest use of the word referred to country people outside the city of Rome who refused to join the Roman army. It gradually came to mean anyone not keeping up with the beliefs and changes in the progressive city of Rome, and eventually was applied to anyone not Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or other similarly traditionally accepted religion, who follows a polytheistic religion such as that of the Aboriginal Australians, the Koji of South America, and many other indigenous tribal peoples, including many Native American tribes. We call Wicca and other modern earth religions, which borrow from early polytheistic religions, neo-pagan to differentiate them from the pagan religions whose practices have changed little since pre-Judeo-Christian times. What is not Wicca? Unfortunately, as Wicca has become more and more popular, the practice of it has moved further and further away from the original practices and beliefs of Gardner and his followers. Movies, television shows, and the internet have caused an enormous influx of young people who believe that becoming a witch or a Wiccan is a matter of just declaring yourself so. Calling yourself a witch to shock friends and relatives is not the making of a good Wiccan. Dungeons and Dragons, UFOs, Ouija boards, seances, hanging out in graveyards, and communing with the spirits of the dead are not what Wicca is about. We do invite our loved ones who have passed over to visit us at Samhain, but ghost hunting and summoning spirits is not part of Wicca. Wiccans sometimes dabble in these things for fun, but they should not be interwoven into Wiccan rituals. The Christian Bible and Jesus are not a part of Wiccan theology. It is not possible to be both Christian and Wiccan at the same time. While Christians may dabble in witchcraft, it is not possible to serve the gods of Christianity and the old gods at the same time. Wicca is not a fantasy world where you can expect to escape from all your problems, nor is it a 12-step program for solving your problems. Sure, everyone has problems, and developing spirituality may help. It's not fair, however, to join a coven and make your problems the center of attention. Remember the personal responsibility aspect of Wicca. Wicca is not about putting curses and hexes on people. Wicca is about helping, not harming. The threefold law makes this very clear, and all Wiccans are harmed when someone claiming the title Wiccan goes around threatening others with their ability to do witchcraft. Misconceptions. Most of the misconceptions about Wicca up until the 1990s stemmed from the stereotype of witches and witchcraft passed down for centuries through church teachings. We were, and still are, accused by some of sacrificing animals and babies, worshipping Satan or the devil, and putting hexes on people and other ridiculous things. There are those who accuse Wiccans of being phonies because they are sure that Wiccans themselves believe they are following an intact ancient pagan religion. While this may have been the belief of some Wiccans many years ago, most are now well aware of the origins of the religion and set the record straight when confronted with such accusations. Our greatest defense is to live as decent human beings and show the world that we are not like the stereotypes. While a lot of the misconceptions Wiccans have to deal with are held by those of other religions, we also have to contend with misconceptions held by some claiming to be Wiccans themselves. We will address some of them here. Wicca is a religion which includes the worship of pre-Christian pagan gods, yet some people claim to be atheist Wiccans or even Christian Wiccans. Now, atheists and Christians can certainly practice witchcraft if they want to, but Wicca is a neo-pagan religion involving connecting with pre-Christian deities. Christ is considered by Christians to be a savior or messiah. There is no such concept in Wicca. Advancing in traditional Wicca involves dedicating oneself completely to the old gods. To the pagans of old, to the gods were individuals, each with their own personality and responsibilities and traits. They were not aspects of one godhead, nor were all goddesses aspects of one goddess, or all gods aspects of one god. To get to know the gods on the level required for advancement in traditional Wicca, a student must respect the gods as individuals and get to know them as such. Traditional Wiccans recognize the importance of working with gods and goddesses who are part of the same pantheon. For years, Wiccans have claimed that there are 9 million people put to death during the Middle Ages for the crime of witchcraft. Newest studies of original trial transcripts puts the number closer to 100,000. Traditional Wiccans should make every attempt to study the latest and most reliable archaeological and historical information on the craft to avoid carrying outdated information forward. Somewhere along the line, some Wiccans have come to believe that Wicca is an anything-goes religion. While indeed there is much leeway in how one practices Wicca, there are still basic tenets which must be present, and others which must not be included, or the practice ceases to be recognizable as Wicca. Traditional Wiccans need to understand the meaning of the word tradition and to understand the significance of tradition and how traditions are carried forward. Wicca remains traditional only when it retains the significant elements included in it by Gerald Gardner and other early practitioners. What traditional Wicca is. The religion of Wicca has several components, which must all be present for it to be traditional Wicca. Spirituality. Wicca is a way of life and a way of relating to the world around us. Wicca provides a way for each individual to find his or her best way of relating to deity. We acknowledge a force of nature which is around us and within us, but not above us or in charge of us. Wicca enables us to see the beauty and the magic in everything we sense and do. Wicca is about developing relationships with gods, goddesses, and the elements for a better understanding of how we can work with them to improve our lives and the lives of those around us. Enlightenment. Traditional Wicca is an initiatory mystery religion based on the ideas found in the ancient mystery schools. Mysteries cannot be taught, lectured about, written down, or explained. The mysteries of life can only be understood through experience and revelation. We are on a constant quest for answers and explanations to questions such as, who are we? Why are we here? What is our place in the grand scheme of things? And what does reincarnation mean to us? The purpose of a mystery school is to create an atmosphere that can enable a student to come to a certain understanding of the answers. There's no guarantees. The level of understanding a student achieves will depend on many factors not within the teacher's control. Wiccans are not afraid to question anything and everything about the world around them. And best of all, we do not feel a need to find the one and only true right answer. Answers lead to more questions, which leads to more meditation, thus to enlightenment. We never stop learning. We believe that the greater our understanding of nature, the better able we are to work with the energies found there. Enlightenment is not a goal, it is an ongoing process. Magic. We use the energies around us to strengthen the power within ourselves. We do not use this power to have power over others. We use this power to help ourselves, the earth, and others in positive and non-harmful ways. We believe that the ability to do magic is a gift from the gods, which must not be abused. In return for this gift, we must always do what we can to help and preserve nature. Responsibility. Practicing Wicca means accepting responsibility for one's own choices and actions. Whether the action is a work of magic, teaching magic to a student, raising a child, driving a car, or writing a book, we must be aware of the consequences of all that we do and always be thinking ahead. Traditional Wiccans do not look to blame others when things go wrong in the world around them. They look for the lessons in all things and apply what they learn to all that they do. Lineage. While Wicca can be practiced in a traditional manner without lineage, it is the lineage to Gardner that ensures that a tradition of Wicca is being taught and carried on by initiated witches who were initiated by witches who were initiated by witches, and so on, directly back to Gardner himself. This helps to assure that at least some of the original flavor and intent of Gardner's Wicca is present. The Tao Te Ching says, between birth and death, 3 in 10 are followers of life, 3 in 10 are followers of death. And men just passing from birth to death also number 3 in 10. Why is this so? Because they live their lives on the gross level. Ethics. Ethics consist of standards of conduct combined with moral judgment and moral philosophy. There is no one set of morals or ethics that can apply to all people at all times in history. Ethics are very much based on local and current standards. Traditional Wiccans are expected to have an above-average level of common sense, and therefore they should not need a long, detailed list of laws and rules. But there are certain customs which most traditional Wiccans hold to, on which we will elaborate in future lessons. Common sense is the strongest guide for people, for humans as well as Wiccan ethics. As an added guide in Wicca, we have the Wiccan Rede and the law of threefold return, also called the threefold law. The threefold law. The threefold law reminds us to think before we act, and this means in all the things that we do and say, not only when we do deliberate magical acts. Ever mind the rule of 3. 3 times what thou givest returns to thee. This lesson well thou must learn, thee only gets what thou dost earn. The Wiccan Rede. There are several long poems which are sometimes referred to as the Wiccan Rede, but the rede itself is actually just the simple words, "And it harm none, do what ye will." The definition of rede is advice or counsel, and bids all Wiccans to think before you speak and act. The rede is simple, but at the same time can take years of study and meditation to fully understand. There is a long version, purported to be written by Doran Valiente. This poem, sometimes erroneously called the Wiccan Rede, was transmitted by the Lady Gwyn Thompson, founder of the New England Coven of Traditionalist Wicca, and first published in Green Egg Magazine, Volume 3, number 69, in 1975. The author is said to be Lady Thompson's grandmother, Adriana Porter, written originally in 1910, although there is some skepticism surrounding its date and origin. Rede of the Wicca, being known as the Council of the Wise Ones. 1. Bide the Wiccan laws ye must in perfect love and perfect trust. 2. Live and let live, fairly take and fairly give. 3. Cast the circle thrice about, to keep all evil spirits out. 4. To bind the spell every time, let the spell be spake in rhyme. 5. Soft of eye and light of touch, speak little, listen much. 6. Dioso goes by the waxing moon, sings and dances the Wiccan rune. 7. Widdershins go when moon doth wane, and the werewolves howl by the dread wolf's bane. 8. When the lady's moon is new, kiss the hand to her times 2. 9. When the moon rides at her peak, then your heart's desires speak. 10. Heed the north wind's mighty gale, lock the door and trim the sail. 11. When the wind comes from the south, love will kiss thee on the mouth. 12. When the wind blows from the east, expect the new and set the feast. 13. When the wind blows o'er thee, departed spirits restless be. 14. 9 woods in the cauldron go, burn them fast and burn them slow. 15. Elder be ye lady's tree, burn it not, or cursed you'll be. 16. When the wheel begins to turn, let the Beltane fires burn. 17. When the wheel hath turned a Yule, light the log and let Pan rule. 18. Heed ye flowers, bush and tree, by the lady blessed be. 19. Where the rippling waters go, cast a stone, and truth you'll know. 20. When ye have need, hearken not to others' greed. 21. With the fool no season spend, or be counted as his friend. 22. Merry meet and merry part, bright cheeks and warm heart. 23. Mind ye threefold law ye should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. 24. When misfortune is now, wear the blue star on thy brow. 25. True in love ever be, unless thy lover is false to thee. 26. 8 words the Wicca Rede fulfill, and it harms none, do what ye will. Bide the Wiccan law ye must, in perfect love and perfect trust. 8 words the Wiccan Rede fulfill, in it harm none, do what ye will. What ye sends forth comes back to thee, so ever mind the rule of 3. Follow this with mind and heart, and merry meet, and merry ye part. How do Wiccans practice? Coven versus solitary practice. While the idea of belonging to a coven is attractive to some, every Wiccan must first and foremost be a good solitary practitioner. A solitary Wiccan is one who has confidence in his or her own abilities and does not need others to achieve their magical and spiritual goal. Each Wiccan is considered to be a priest or priestess and perfectly capable of contacting the gods on their own and celebrating sabbats and esbats and working spells alone. Many Wiccans spend years as solitaries before joining a coven. Some never join, and others join shortly after discovering Wicca. Some may go from one coven or group to another before finding the one that is right for them. There are many types of covens, but they can generally be broken down into two major groups: traditional and non-traditional. A traditional coven is generally one where rules and stories are handed down through a process of initiation, and there are fairly rigid rules on how the rituals are performed, and what students must study, and how students progress from one level to the next. Traditional Wicca is an initiatory mystery path, which means a major focus of such covens is on personal enlightenment and growth. Non-traditional covens may be run in a more democratic fashion, where people take turns leading the group, and rituals may be borrowed from a variety of traditions or written by the group. Other differences in covens are found in their choice of gods and goddess pantheons, whether they admit men, women, or both, and to the degree to which they are public or out of the broom closet. Never consider joining a coven without understanding these major points. You should never have to compromise your own beliefs to join a group. How and what do Wiccans celebrate? Much of what Wiccans do is symbolic. Because the roots of Wicca are found in an ancient pagan tradition, the celebrations revolve around such events as planting, fertility, and harvesting of crops. Because we are no longer all farmers, modern Wiccans view these events symbolically. When we plant, it may be a new idea, such as starting a diet or exercise program. When we ask for fertility, it is more likely to be for our pocketbooks than our wombs. And when we harvest, it may be the completion of a project at work or school. If anyone knows anything about Wicca or witchcraft, it is usually that Halloween is our big day. Well, it is one of the many things we celebrate, but not necessarily the most important. Halloween, or Samhain as we call it, is one of the 8 sabbats or holidays in the Wiccan calendar, also known as the Wheel of the Year. Samhain is usually acknowledged as the Wiccan New Year because it is seen as the time when one year dies and the next is born. This is because, at least up north, it is the time of killing frosts, and therefore when plants and weaker animals naturally die. And because of this, it is a time for remembering those who have passed on. It is worth pointing out that contrary to propaganda and rumor, there is no witch's god called Samhain. It's just an old Gaelic word meaning November Eve. The next sabbat in the Wheel of Year is Yule, or winter solstice. The Yule log is burned and the tree is decorated, acknowledging the end of the shortening days and the beginning of the lengthening days, which indicate that spring will indeed return. Next on the wheel is Imbolc, celebrated on February 2nd. Like Groundhog Day, it is the time when we look for the first signs of spring. Imbolc is frequently celebrated with the lighting of many candles or bonfires as a symbolic burning away of the winter and welcoming of the spring. Next is Ostara, or the spring equinox. It is a celebration of new life and the time when gods are reborn, as we are told in many myths from around the world. Beltane, or May Day, is the next sabbat and is a celebration of fertility of plants and animals and life. It is when the maypole dance is done. Following Beltane is Litha, or the summer solstice. It is a celebration of the first hay harvest and the longest day of the year. Lammas, or Lugnasa, is August 2nd, is a celebration of the main grain harvest, but Mabon, or the autumnal equinox, is generally the biggest harvest celebration of the year. In between the sabbats, most Wiccans also celebrate the full and new moons and various rites of passage. As with the sabbats, the moons, or esbats, are celebrated within a circle. A circle is the Wiccan equivalent of a temple or a church. It does not need to be a permanent structure and may be created indoors or out. The edge of the circle can be defined either visibly with string or other means, or it may be invisible. Either way, it marks off the sacred space in which the ritual is done. There is generally an altar placed inside the circle, and on the altar are symbolic objects such as candles, incense, seashells, bells, crystals, and a wand. A ritual may include singing, chanting, meditation, and storytelling, and sometimes the working of magic. Rituals of celebration are frequently followed by a meal or feast, and singing and dancing, and the playing of drums or other musical instruments. In addition to the sabbats and the esbats, there are several celebrations of rites of passage, such as births, deaths, wedding or handfasting, coming of age, graduation, moving into a new home, initiation, retirement, first job, first new tooth, or any other event worthy of notice. There is a lot to understand about the craft before you get to the point of doing spells or magic. At the very least, you need to develop a relationship with a goddess, a god, and the elements. You need to know where Wicca comes from. You need to know the various options for setting up an altar. You need to have a very good understanding of energy, including where it comes from, what it is, and what it can do. You need to understand the consequences of each possible magical act. You need to know how to define what those possible outcomes can be. Most of all, you need to understand how to live magically. If you don't have a journal or a diary, this is a good time to start one. You should get into the habit of writing in it every day, even if it's only a line or two. You can use it for recording your dreams, what you learn about nature, your encounters with the gods and elements, poetry, and anything else you like. It is especially interesting to write down your thoughts on Wicca and the gods so you can go back in a year and see how far you have come. Thank you, and blessed be.